Hi there. Today I'm starting this piece. This is the face mask of Duncan Goodhew, who is a famous British Olympian swimmer. And it's when I cast him, he was wearing his goggles, so you can see his goggles through there. And I'm going to put clay in it today. So while I'm supporting it, because I don't want to squash the nose, I'm putting it in an ice cream tub, so that when I lay the clay in it, it doesn't get squashed. I'm using cloth. This is just a thick curtain cloth that I cut off lots of our stuff around the house. So I'm afraid that our bedding and our curtains and things always ends up being usefully used. Anyway, that's very good for rolling out on. If I just move this down a bit, see if I can. There you go, then you can see. So I've got that laid down. Actually, I'll cut this away for a moment. I'm using this clay. This is from Pottery Crafts, British company, and it's called Buff Earthenware Stoneware Clay. I like it because it's pretty smooth but also strong, so it's good for modelling with. This is made by fishing wire and attached to 2 bits of dowel, and I use that like a cheese cutter. And I've taken off a slab. This is where my cloth comes in. Now I'm going to need, because the mould dips down very deeply for the nose, I'm going to need a piece to push into there, because otherwise when I lay the slab of clay in and push it through there, it will split. I'll just cut off a wedge like this. So I've got that to push into the nose, and I'll make it a bit more nose shaped. The nose won't be perfectly formed anyway when I put it in, because the when I cast Duncan, as with other people, I leave the end of the nose free so that the person can breathe, because otherwise it'd be a pretty disastrous experience casting their faces and no way to breathe. Okay, I now have a nose-shaped lump. I'm going to press that down. Yeah. I'm pushing very firmly. Now I know that when this comes out, it's going to be an odd shape, and it's going to need work to make it more like Duncan's real nose, but fortunately he very kindly let me take photographs of him while I was working, so that won't be a problem. I'll just model it on to look like his real nose. And I'm pushing this down, and I'm trying to flatten off the back area. Now, because the clay I'm working with is brand new and from the bag, it's pretty soft, which means that this piece of clay should join pretty well onto the next piece without me needing to slip and score and join it on too much. But what I'm doing is I'm pressing it to try and sort of smooth off the back flat, or fairly smooth. I mean, not flat because I want it to curve around the shape of the face, but fairly smooth, so that when I press the next bit on, I don't trap any air bubbles. If there are any dips in this and I trap air bubbles, then that causes me a problem, because when the work goes into the kiln and fires up, the air, any air trapped in it, expands with the heat and will blow it out. I'm just going to stand up because it's easier to force this. I'm rolling from the centre away from me, from the centre back towards me, and I'm turning over. And the reason for this, I turn over because otherwise it very quickly gets stuck onto the cloth, and I need it to keep moving easily. I'm keeping on it. Now I've been casting, I was actually doing a body cast of pregnant lady earlier in this room, and because of that there's bits of plaster around, even though I think I've cleaned it up really carefully. I'm afraid that because I work a lot with plaster, and also this is plaster and I've been showing you, so the plaster's been going across the cloth, there are sometimes little bits of plaster around, and they also can be a problem with the way the clay fires. So it's important that if I see any of them, I just scrape them out. Now, I make this bigger than I think I'm going to need it. But basically, if I want to measure how I'm going to need it, so I've got a piece of, you use a piece of string or wire, and you can bend it down into the base of your piece and stretch out and think, okay, so did you see, I don't know if that's, sorry. Okay, so I've got the head, I've got my wire, I bend it down so it goes down into the bottom, so it runs basically around from one side to the other like that. And I hold it where it goes at the edges, there and there, and then I can open it out and think, well, it needs to be that wide. Okay, and that's actually how wide my clay is, so that's good. I'm going to be carving quite a lot into this, so I don't want it to have it too thin, because it's going to have quite a lot of detail carved into it. Now I want it to, because the top of his head obviously is dome shaped like that, to fit this in, it needs to be able to fold into that. So what I do is I cut a wedge out at the top to enable it, when it goes in, to fold like that. And I'm also going to do the same around the chin area. By the way, I'm wearing gloves, not because the clay, you can't touch it, but at the moment I've been doing so much clay work lately that, and I keep washing my hands, that my hands are drying out quite a lot. Just cutting that first ridge so it goes straighter. There we go. Underneath I've cut it so it's straighter down there. And then I press from the centre out to the edge. Yeah, into the chin. And it doesn't really matter if it's a little bit messy, because I'm going to spend quite a lot of time tidying it up afterwards, but what does matter is that I get a good imprint from the cast I took off the person's face. Sorry, I'm going to have to tip this up more that way. Now, where the two bits are overlapping at the top, there's a big overlap, and I don't want that. So I'll just try trying to, I've cut that back so that they overlap just a little. So they overlap just a little like that at the top. And I'm just going to press those two together. And I'm going to take a spare bit of the clay that I cut off like that, and I'm pushing that down into the joint to reinforce it from the inside, because when you push two bits of clay together edge on like that, it's still sort of weak along where the join was, so that run a piece of clay along that and then smooth it in. That really helps. Okay, and that's overlapping the mould quite a lot there. I'm cutting a bit higher than the edge of the mould because this mould's plaster, and as long as I don't get much plaster into the clay, or any, in fact I want to avoid getting plaster into the clay, I can recycle that and use that without any problems. But if I've got any bits in there, it is a problem, so I need to be careful about keeping it away. Okay. And what I'm doing now is I'm just sort of, it's almost like smearing, but in that sort of way, from the centre to the edges, because it's very easy to think that you've pressed something in, but particularly even, you know, where I've got here, I've got the big dip where the goggles are. The very fact that the inside of this clay hasn't really dipped in very much here and here, there and there, means that it's probably not pushed enough into those bits. Okay, push it down the neck. Now we've got another overlap thing here. There's my knife. Okay, so I'm cutting that bit there straight, or straighter. A bit deeper. Okay, and then it overlaps that one, not too much actually, that's okay. I don't know how much neck I'm going to want to keep on this piece. I've got some design ideas, but I'm not entirely sure sometimes until I see the thing in 3 dimension exactly how that's going to work out. And then once again, I want to get a little sausage of clay like this, and I'm going to run that along the join down there. So I've run that along the join, I've pressed it in quite firmly, and then I smear from the centre to the edges. And I push up the sides. There's a gap where I've pushed down into his chin, where I cut it. Do you remember I cut a groove? There's a little gap there. I've got an off cut here. Bit of plastering, just get rid of that. And I'm going to press that down into that hole. And each time I'm pressing, I press from the centre to the edges, because I'm worried about getting any air trapped underneath it, because I don't want to give myself problems with things exploding later. I'm beginning to feel that this is going to look a bit more, the interior is beginning to look a bit more like the mould, which means that it's beginning to be pressed in fairly well. See, it's come through the end of his nose. That'll look quite funny when it comes out. Okay. There's a bit more clay to cut off on the edge. When you're working with clay, I think the main thing to remember about it is just to be patient. It's a lovely, lovely medium, but sometimes, you know, it takes you a while to work out how to use it and work with it. But if you are patient and careful with it, you can overcome most problems. You can, if you make mistakes, you can mend them quite often. If the clay dries out too much, you can very gently get it back to being malleable, if you're careful, by wrapping it with a very thin, not very wet, slightly wet J-cloth or something, you know, cleaning cloth, very thin cloth, something not too weighty. You can do all sorts of things with it, and for me it's one of my favourite mediums, just because I can control it. Now this bit here that went down the bottom bit, that was on his chest, is a bit uneven, this shape, so I don't think it's going to be very neat. So I'm just going to crop that off at the bottom there, like that. And because this has been against the plaster, it's got tiny little bits of plaster in, so I'm just taking those out. Oh, sorry. Did you see that? Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm just scraping those bits off so it's clean, doesn't have it. Okay. Right, and then that's it so far. And then I'll do another video when I come to take it out, but he needs to dry off a bit now. Okay, bye-bye.